Hare Krishna. Many of us are very much eager to learn Bhagavatam systematically. So today we thought of presenting the overview of Bhagavatam before we actually embark on 8th canto. We have completed 7th canto a few days before, and we have completed Nectar of Instruction till yesterday, and then we will be starting Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto from tomorrow or day after. Before that, we thought we will give a synopsis, a summary description of what exactly is there in the Bhagavatam. So we thought of discussing the overview, the breakup of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam actually starts with the canto 1, where actually the prime subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam is described. So the preface or the prelude, it will actually it is canto 1, which will canto 1 has 19 chapters, in which the subject matter, the author Vyasadeva, actually he touches upon the main subject matter, and he reveals the circumstances in which the compilation and narration of this wonderful work took place. So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam actually is said, Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1 is said to be the prelude or preface to the entire Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is considered to be a bottomless ocean, but the ocean of what? Ocean of nectar. So it is, nectar means we all know Amrita, which will actually give us deathlessness or immortality. So Bhagavatam is an ocean of nectar. Even one drop of nectar can make us immortal. What to speak of diving into an ocean of immortality? So what is that immortality? Immortality is realizing our constitutional position and engaging in the activities what we do in our natural constitutional position. And Bhagavatam actually describes these activities in detail through the examples of Mahabhagatas, those devotees who have perfected their lives following these principles. So the canto 1 actually describes the sadhya, the goal of the goal of the subject matter, and also the goal of human life, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. And then it also describes the process to attain that goal, that is Uttama Sadhana. So the Uttama Sadhana is Lord Krishna, and Uttama Sadhya is Lord Krishna, and Uttama Sadhana is the best and easiest process, that is devotional service to Lord Krishna. So that is described. And in canto 1, the chapter 1 to 3 actually describes the conversation between the sages of Naimisharanya and the Sota Goswami. So actually, Vyasadeva, he starts Bhagavatam with a prelude of 3 verses. He describes what is the supreme absolute truth in verse number 1. So the verse number 1 says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Tonmayaditarataschaddeshva Vijñasvarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adigavaye Muhyanti Yat Surayah Tejo Vari Mridham Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Amrisha Dhamna Svena Nirastakahakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. It describes the absolute in various phases, and it also invokes the Dhimahi. By saying Dhimahi, it will invoke the Gayatri mantra, so making the narration more authentic. And the Vyasadeva, before embarking on this Srimad Bhagavatam, he establishes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, as the Supreme Absolute Truth through this verse, which is above this all the material manifestations which we see around. So he establishes Lord Krishna as being different and transcendental to both matter and spirit. And he is the Supreme Spirit. He establishes him through this first verse. And in the next verse, he talks about dharma, what actually is the dharma of the human being, and what are all the kinds of dharma, and what actually is talking about, what is that dharma which Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about. That is dharma prochita kaitavotra paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam. He says, so he right at the outset, he actually judges, he actually talks about who is the prospective audience for this narration. He says that those people who are interested in actual dharma, and what is actually dharma? Actual dharma is the supreme eternal devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the supreme dharma, and all other dharmas, all other activities which are actually leading to temporary results are actually, he outrightly says, they are kaitava dharma. They are actually cheating religion. So he says that dharma projita, this Bhagavatam, it actually erases projita of all the cheating religions, and it establishes the supreme dharma or Bhagavad dharma or devotional service to the Supreme Lord as a highest dharma. He describes that, and in the verse 3, he actually describes the merit of Srimad Bhagavatam, the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is Nigama Kalpataror Dalitam Phalam Sukamukad Amruta Drava Samyutam Pipata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. He says this Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all the Vedic knowledge. It is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. Nigama is the Vedas. Nigama Kalpataror, and Vedas are like the Kalpataru. They are like the desire tree. Whoever approaches a desire tree with whatever desire they have, they will get that fruit from them. So Vedas are like that. They talk about different kinds of dharma, artha and kama and dharma. So whoever with whatever intent they approach the Vedas, they will get that. So the Vedas are considered to be the Kalpataru, and Bhagavatam is considered to be the ripened fruit of that Vedic tree of knowledge. Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam, ripened tree, and that tree, that fruit, when it is tasted by a parrot, it even becomes more tasteful. So Sukhamukad Amruta Drava Samyutam. So when Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken by Sukha, who is like a parrot, when he tasted the Bhagavatam himself, that fruit of Vedic knowledge, it becomes even more sweeter. And Galitam Phalam Sukhamukad Amruta Drava Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam. Oh listeners, Muhuraho. Oh listeners, Muhuraho Rasika. Oh, you actually want to enjoy the sweetness of the fruit of this tree? Oh, drink this nectar. Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. You are actually have a desire to experience the ecstasy of tasting this nectar of the tree of Vedic knowledge. Take this Srimad Bhagavatam, hear it through your ears, drink through your ears, he is saying. And then right after that, after establishing that these three verses, then the conversation switches to what actually was the context in which the Srimad Bhagavatam was described. So the sages of Naimisharanya are actually doing 100 years of Satra Yajna for the benefit of all humanity. They were doing Yajna every day, and then one day, by the will of Lord Krishna, Sutta Goswami, who was the disciple of Sukadeva Goswami, who formerly heard Srimad Bhagavatam when it was recited before Parikshit Maharaj by him, that Sutta Goswami happens to visit the Naimisharanya. Then all the sages headed by Saunaka, the Saunakadi Rishis, they actually glorify Sutta Goswami, and then they actually request him to describe about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in detail. So that is when Sutta Goswami, he starts narrating the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is primarily the discussion between the sages of Naimisharanya and Sutta Goswami. And in that, Sutta Goswami says that I have heard this Bhagavatam formerly when Sukadeva Goswami spoken to Parikshit Maharaj. So there is a conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami in the conversation between the sages and the Sutta Goswami. So there are two conversations. The superset is the conversation between the sages of Naimisharanya and Sutta Goswami, and in that there is a discussion between the Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami. And during the course of these are the two main conversations which will happen. In course of these two conversations, Sukadeva Goswami speaks about histories of different Manus. During the description of different Manus, he actually cites different conversations. So just as we heard the conversation between Narada Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj, so actually, so these are all the inter-conversations in between the personalities. Like if we see a movie, so in the movie, there sometimes the flashback is described. So similarly, in the flashback also, another flashback can be there. So see, these are the conversations happening in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So first 3 chapters, it describes about the conversation between sages of Naimisharanya and Sutta Goswami. And then 4th chapter actually describes how Srila Vyasadeva, now after the conversations are over, the sages glorify Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami actually starts to describe Srimad Bhagavatam. On Canto 4, actually, Sutta Goswami describes how Vyasadeva himself, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, being merciful upon all the fallen conditioned souls, how he actually divided the one Veda. Earlier, the Veda was only one, it was not 4. We know that Veda is 4 Vedas, right? Rig, Yajur, Sama, Dharva. So, the Veda was actually one. But for benefit of the people of Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva has actually divided the Veda into 4. Not only did he divide the Veda into 4, he also gave every branch of knowledge to a few disciples so that the knowledge can be disseminated. It can reach to the one and all. So he disseminated this knowledge among the disciples. He made them acharyas and he propagated the science of Vedic knowledge through his disciples. And after that, he understood that in Kali Yuga, people will be will be having so many faults. They cannot remember so many philosophical subject matters. For them, he thought of how they can be delivered. Stri Sutra Dvija Bandhuna. So the Stris, the women, and the Sudras, the lower class of people, and then Dvija Bandhu, those who are born in higher class, but they have no proper education of proper culture and proper philosophical understanding of the Vedic subject matter, how they can be delivered. For them, he actually wrote Mahabharata. So Mahabharata describes about the story in the story form, the histories of the Pandavas and many kings. Alongside, he actually gave the transcendental subject matter of devotional service to Lord Krishna, Lord Krishna's importance. But the prime subject matter happens to be the story of the kings. Mahabharata, the kings of Bharat used to be the emperor of Bharat used to be the emperor of the whole world in olden times. So he describes the Bharata, and alongside he describes about Lord Krishna, who is also ruling Dwarka and Mathura. And when describing about Krishna, he describes about Kurukshetra, and he describes about the instruction of instructions of Lord Krishna, which is the essence of all Upanishads, that is Gita Upanishad. He describes that, and he also describes about different transcendental instructions received by Yudhishthira, and also the how Bhishma Dev actually he described instructions of dharma to Yudhishthira Maharaj on his deathbed, and Bhishma Dev also gave Vishnu Sahasranama. So all these things were given in as a summary in the Bhagavatam. But the main subject happens to be the story of the kings. So this Vyasadeva has actually tried his best to elevate the humanity from the gross bodily consciousness to the transcendental platform. So, and then 5th to 7th chapter actually describes about Narada Muni's conversation to Vyasadeva. But even after doing all this effort, Vyasadeva was not somehow feeling dissatisfaction at his heart, so that he has not done sufficient job. And then when a disciple is actually earnest and honest in his endeavors, he attracts the mercy of the spiritual master from his heart. So by providence, Narada Muni comes into the ashram of Vyasadeva, and he says that he kind of sarcastically addresses Vyasadeva. He says that, are you satisfied by thinking that your body to be the self? He actually sarcastically tells to his disciple Vyasadeva. So in actually Narada Muni is hinting that although yada dharmadayas munivaryasya anuvarnitam, as much as you have described and glorified dharma, artha and kama, you have not described about that Hari Charita. You did not even describe the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that much deeply. You have sprinkled devotional service to Lord Krishna and other avatars here and there. Devotional service to Lord Krishna here and there. Like you have discussed about, Vishnu Sahasranama. You have discussed about Gita, Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all Mahabharata. Nevertheless, people are attracted towards the storyline only. People are not attracted towards the philosophy which you have given. They will tend to forget the essence, that is Gita. So you have to actually describe Lord Krishna's activities in total and exclusively and specifically. So that's what he instructs to Vyasadeva in this conversation between Narada and Vyasa. And then Narada Muni, to explain the potency of devotional service, he gives the account of his own life when he actually had a little association with the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for 4 months only, and that actually led him to become the son of Brahma in his next life. And Narada Muni, he's saying, I am the example of that potency of devotional service standing in front of you today. So please please give this essence of all the Vedic knowledge, this Srimad Bhagavatam, that is the exclusive description, exclusive glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to all the people in general, which will only satisfy the quest of all the people, nothing else which you have that's why Srimad Bhagavatam, so Vyasadeva written dharma projita kaitava atra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So this Bhagavatam is pleasing to those people who does not believe in other kinds of religion. Other kinds of religion are only other kinds of dharma are only leading to temporary results. So, but this Bhagavatam exclusively describes about the devotional service to Vishnu and Krishna only. So you have to describe that. He says that, and then chapter 7 to then the narration continues. Then actually Vyasdeva sits in trance and he meditates, and when as soon as he meditates, the form of the Supreme Lord and all the pastimes start revealing in his heart, and he starts writing Srimad Bhagavatam. So it starts with the events leading to Maharaj Parikshit's birth. Why Maharaj Parikshit's birth? He is the main character here. So actually in a play, the author actually introduces the hero, heroine, everyone. So one by one. So Vyasadeva is actually introducing Parikshit Maharaj. Who actually is Parikshit Maharaj? Parikshit Maharaj is not an ordinary person as we see in the films. Parikshit Maharaj is actually a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead right within his womb. So this is the chapter 7 describes how Ashwadhama, after the battle of Kurukshetra, not able to conquer our Pandavas, he throws Brahmastra over the Pandavas and the heir who is yet to be born in the womb of Uttara to kill the only successor of the Pandavas, so that the whole earth will be rid of the Pandavas. With this malintention, he actually throws Brahmastra on Parikshit Maharaj, but Lord Krishna, understanding the situation, he actually enters the womb of Uttara while he was standing there only in front of him. He enters the womb of Uttara and he protects the Parikshit Maharaj with his club. It is said that actually Parikshit died out of Brahmastra, but Lord Krishna revived him. So that is the Vishnu. That's why Parikshit also is called Vishnu Rata, protected by Lord Vishnu. So that is actually Parikshit Maharaj. He describes this event so that the audience will understand who Parikshit is, and then what are his activities, who are the Pandavas, and he describes that he introduces all the characters of the Bhagavatam in the first canto. So 7 to 12 describes how the events leading to Parikshit Maharaj's birth, and 13 to 15 actually describes how Parikshit Maharaj was coronated, and 16 to 18 describes what are the events which led to renunciation of Parikshit Maharaj. We know that Parikshit was sitting on the bank of Ganges and heard instructions from a sage. So it is uncharacteristic of a king to leave everything aside and just read, just hear Bhagavatam for 7 days. And he was in total renunciation. So the sages became curious. Why Parikshit has to retire from family life? So these are what are the events which led to the retirement of Parikshit were described, and how Srimad Bhagavatam, how Sukadeva Goswami has appeared. This was described in chapter 19. So this ends the canto 1. Then chapter 2, canto 2 actually describes about the introduction to Bhagavatam. So Parikshit has asked, when Parikshit met Sukadeva Goswami, there were different sages actually describing what is the supreme dharma of a human being, especially of a person who is about to die. So why? Because Parikshit was cursed by a Brahmana boy who to be killed in 7 days. That is the events leading to the retirement of Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit was convinced by Brahmana boy to die in 7 days. So then when he saw Sukadeva Goswami, he presented his earnest desire to Sukadeva Goswami. He said that what is the supreme dharma? He asked 6 questions actually. So Parikshit, actually these 6 questions were asked by the sages of Naimisharanya only. So actually I missed that. That is the sages of Naimisharanya actually asked Sota Goswami 6 questions. What is the supreme dharma of all humanity? What is the supreme dharma of a person who is actually about to die? So these are 6 questions. So these were described, these were actually answered by Sota Goswami. In that conversation, he is actually citing the conversation between Parikshit and Sukadeva Goswami. Now coming back, shifting our focus to Canto 2 here. So Parikshit inquires, what is the duty of a dying person? So Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami describes bhakti is the highest process. And then in chapter 1 to 3, he actually describes the excellence of bhakti over karma, jnana, yoga, and devata worship. So he describes that in the chapter 1 to 3. And in chapter 4, actually he describes about what is the how actually this Srimad Bhagavatam originated from Lord Narayana himself. From Narayana himself. And then from in chapter Canto 2 has 10 chapters. So in 5 to 7, after 1 to 3, after 4th chapter, describing that the Bhagavatam actually originated from Lord Narayana only. Chapter 5 to 7 actually describes the conversation between Narada and Lord Brahma. Narada Muni once go to Lord Brahma and he glorifies Lord Brahma as the supreme creator. So then Brahma says that, sorry, thank you for glorifying me, but actually I am not the supreme creator. Actually it is Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu who is the supreme creator. I appear to be a secondary creator only. So this is being described in the conversation between Brahma and Narada, and there actually the sarga, some part of how actually the creation has happened, that is described. And then so Brahma says that Mayam varneto amushya Ishwarasya anumaditah srunnvata sraddhaya nityam mayayatma namuhyate. Why we should describe about the creation pastimes about the Supreme Lord is Ishwarasya anumoditah. It is being it was being it is remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead's greatness, how the Lord has created this wonderful world. So while describing and hearing about this narration with faith, we actually can get liberation. Maya yatma namuhyati. And also we will not be bewildered by the Maya here. And then chapter 8 describes further questions of Parikshit Maharaj. And then the the conversation continues. In chapter 9, as an answer to Parikshit Maharaj's question, Sukadeva Goswami describes about how Lord Narayana formerly has given this knowledge to Brahma at the dawn of creation. So that is called as Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita. In Chatushloki Bhagavatam, in 4 verses, Lord Narayana actually instructs Lord Brahma how to actually create this world, and what is this world, and what is the aim of this whole creation, that is to actually devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is these 4 verses describe about Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana of Srimad Bhagavatam itself. We will not touch upon that subject now. And chapter 10 is that where from the whole subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam is actually described, you know, what do you call, what is that word? Systematically. So this is the verse which will say, Sri Sukha Uvacha, Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanamutayah Manvantareshanu Nirodho Muktirashrayaha. So Bhagavatam actually describes about the 10 subject matters. What is that? Atra Sarga means creation, Visarga, secondary creation or sub-creation, Visargascha Sthanam. So after the creation is done, the living entities have to be given different places to stay. So that is called Sthanam. And Poshanam, their maintenance also has to be described, how they will get their necessities. So Poshanam, Utayaha, and how the impetus to create more, how these created beings created another being, that is called Uti, impetus for creation. And Manvantara. Manvantara means who are the administrative people for all these administrative heads for all these people. So that is Manvantara. So that's why that is called Manus. So these Manus are ruling in different times. So that is called Manvantara. And then Isha Anukatha. So during this course of rule of Manus, the Lord himself appears. So the Lord's narrations are also described in Isha Anukatha. And then Nirodha, it also describes about the dissolution of this universe, and then it also describes about Mukti, how one can attain liberation, and Ashraya, that is the Ashraya is the 10th subject matter, that is the main, that is the shelter of all the Samam Bonam, of all the end topics. So these are all the 10 subject matters of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, Dasamasya Vishuddhyartham Navanam Iha Lakshanam Varnayati Mahatmanaha Shrutena Arthena Anjasa. So, he's saying Dasamasya Vishuddhyartham. So, we will go ahead, we will describe, we will come back to the original breakup of the canto here again. So, Dasamasya Vishuddhyartham. So, for establishing the transcendence of the 10th subject matter, that is Samam and Gonam, the symptoms of the rest are described by sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanation given by the great sages. Dasamasya Visuddhi Artham Navanam, other 9 topics, here Lakshanam, the symptoms, Parnayati Mahatmanaha, they are described in summary, Mahatmanaha, they are described by the great devotees, by the great sages, how Srutena, Arthena, Anjasa. So, sometimes by direct explanation, Sruti, sometimes by summary explanations, that is Arthana, Anjasa, and sometimes by Vedic inference. By Vedic inference, some Srutena, Arthena by direct explanation, and sometimes by Anjasa by summary explanation. So the thing is the 10th subject matter, which is the Ashraya of the by taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Samam Bonam, is the main subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Other 9 topics were described by the great sages to create an impetus, to create an atmosphere, so that this can be taken very seriously. So that is being described in the Bhagavatam. Now going back to the original prelude here, introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam. So the 10th canto describes about the 10th chapter of the 2nd canto describes about the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then the canto 3 describes about, actually continues the narration of Sarga, the primary creation of the Supreme Lord, how the creation actually emanated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is being described in Canto 3 primarily. However, it starts with a conversation between the Sukadeva Goswami is describing Parikshit Maharaj, and Sukadeva Goswami is describing a narration between Uddhava and Maitreya in their conversation. So that is the how and how Uddhava remembers the Supreme Lord's sweetness and all, that is described in Canto third. So in essence, Canto third actually describes about the primary creation, which is emanating from the Supreme Lord Vishnu himself. It describes in detail about the 24 material elements and how the different elements are formed, how earth, water, fire, air, ether undergo transformations to to make the world make the different elements of this material world. All these things are described, and during that course, it also describes about the pastimes of Lord Varaha and other incarnations, which when those subject matters come, actually Parikshit Maharaj asks different questions, so that pastimes are also described. And then Visarga, the secondary creation, is described in also in different places. So that is in Canto 3, chapter 10, 12, and 20. They describe Visarga, the secondary creation. Secondary creation is that which is done by Lord Brahma. So that is secondary creation, Visarga, and Brahma and the Prajapatis. So that is described in the chapters 10, 12, and 20 of third canto, as well as that is the main subject matter of fourth canto. So that is 1 to 30. Fourth canto has 31 chapters. So in fourth canto, 1 to 31 chapters, the secondary creation by Lord Brahma is described, and also it continues till canto 5, 1 to 15, where the universal description of the universe is also sorry, that is not there. So the secondary creation is described. Now, there is one underlying theme that we will understand when we read Bhagavatam. Actually, Sukadeva Goswami is describing about the dynasties of different dynasties of Manu. During the discussion of the dynasties of Manu, he touches upon all these subject matters. So, Swayambhuva Manu, who is the first Manu of this mankind, who is the original predecessor of this mankind, has 5 siblings. They are Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti, and then Priyavrata and Uttanapada and Priyavrata. So the description of all the Bhagavatam actually goes in line with the description of these dynasties, where who is Uttanapada, who is Priyavrata, and who is there. So so how Manu had different 2 sons who are Uttanapada and Priyavrata, and then Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti, their daughters and their lineages and all. So this is the description of the creation and secondary creation. And then sthana, we discussed about, right? When the living beings are created, they have to be given different places, right? So that describes about the sthana. So in 5th canto 16 to 26, it describes the geography of all the whole creation, this universe. Sukadeva Goswami goes to great detail where where are different planets, how sun moves, how the moon moves, how different planets move, what are the zodiac, what are all the stars, where are we situated in the universe. So all these things are described in the canto 5. And then canto 6 describes about when this creation is done, then they need to be protected also, right? So what is Poshana? Poshana means how different living entities are being sustained by the Supreme Lord, given nourishment by the Supreme Lord, how they are protected by the Supreme Lord. So that is called Poshana. And then Canto 7 describes about the impetus for creation. So, and then Canto 8 describes about the administration done to done administrative affairs, how to actually take and to how to actually administer all these things. So the Manus are actually the administrator of the universe. They have 6 aspects which I am not touching upon right now, because we are only discussing about the prelude here, sorry, summary description. And then Canto 9 describes about the various pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Sukadeva Goswami touches briefly upon the pastimes of Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. Also, he touches at the end of the 9th canto, and also he glorifies the Supreme Lord through various incarnations in 10th, 9th canto. And then 10th canto actually describes in great detail specifically about Lord Krishna. So 10th canto is the Ashraya. So we discussed that Dasamasya Visuddhyartham Navana Mihalakshanam. So we discussed only what do you call Atra Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Poshana, Uti, Manvantara. But we did not describe, we did not discuss Mukti and Nirodha. Still, the Ashraya is put, just as in Bhagavad Gita, the Bhakti is encapsulated between the first 6 chapters and the second last 6 chapters in the chapters 7 to 12. Here also, the Ashraya Jnana, the confidential pastimes of the Supreme Lord Krishna are actually encapsulated in Canto 10. So this is the main subject of matter of Bhagavatam. So other storyline is actually weaved around this so as to make the reader interested in the subject matter, to understand, to make, before the reader actually embarks upon understanding the pastimes of Lord Krishna, the author has actually described who is the hero actually, how great he is, through the how wonderfully he created this universe, how he has actually administered all this universe around us. He created actually a an impression upon the audience how actually great the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. Then he describes about his personal dealings in the Canto 10. So that is very important, that when we read Bhagavatam, we read it systematically, because it actually builds up our mood. But nowadays, people will describe directly the activities of Lord Krishna in 10th canto, and especially his confidential pastimes about the his intimate dealings with gopis and all in the 10th canto. But they don't have little knowledge about who that person is. He is not an ordinary person in the street. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is maintaining all the creations. He is the Supreme of all the incarnation. He is the Supreme of all the avatars also. So that subject matter has to be dealt with very properly. So the author himself is actually weaving the story about this in the rest of the 9 cantos before he discusses this chapter, this canto in the 10th canto. And then, so how, by taking shelter of that Supreme Personality of Godhead, one actually attain liberation, that is described in the Canto 11. And then how, even though if we have still desire to be in this world, everything is temporary. That is actually describing in the dissolution, how the universal dissolution, the devastation, the destruction of the whole universe happens. That actually is described in Canto 12. And Canto 12, Sukadeva Goswami actually describes the glories of taking the devotional service, and the Sudha Goswami, he describes actually the glories of the holy name. So the Canto 12, in the last verse, Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranasanam Pranamo Dukkha Samanam Tam Namami Harim Param. He says that, so the essence of the whole Bhagavatam is to take shelter of to do Nama Sankirtana of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the whole the message of Srimad Bhagavatam concludes that you have to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ashraya, and then so the best means of Ashraya in this Kali Yuga is by chanting of the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that is actually the overview of Bhagavatam. In actually, I tried my best to do justice to this chapter. I have to admit that I have not so much preparation, but I tried to do my best. And then diving into the canto. What is the time now? Do we have time? Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. We have time. It's only 6.
Yeah. So Canto 8, actually, as we described before, Canto 8 actually describes about the description of Manus. So in chapter 1, the 4 Manus were described. The first 4 Manus were described. In course of discussion about the 4 Manus, there is a pastime of Gajendra that actually comes in chapter 2 to 4. Just a second. Yeah. So definition of Manvantara. Why Manvantara? Why are we discussing about Manu? Manus are the administrators we described. So what is the role of the administrator? Their role is to establish Sadharma. Now even today in our law books we refer to Manu Samhitas. So what is Manu Samhita? The instruction given by the Manus how to conduct our life so that we can attain our real goal of life, that is liberation. So the Manus actually told the humanity what is the purpose of this society and how we have to deal with different circumstances in life, situations in life, what is good, what is bad. That is called as dharma. So that sadharma is established by Manus. So the Manus are the lawmakers of the mankind. So they told. So there are 6 elements of each Manvantara. The quality of the Manvantara period is the establishment of dharma. So Manu's main role is to sadharma, establish sadharma. So there are 6 elements of Manvantara. That is the Manu period, who institutes the dharma. We will not go into that. So that is actually the role of the Manu. Then first chapter 1 describes the description of the 4 Manus. Okay, and then the 6 persons appointed by the during each Manvantara, they who look after the Manus, so who look after the administration after the maintenance of the universe. This is being described in this 4th chapter, in this chapter 1. Then while hearing that during the 4th Manvantara, Lord Hari, the son of Harini and Harimeda, actually, as I told, the Sukadeva Goswami is describing all these pastimes in due course of describing the dynasties of the Manus. So in the 4th Manvantara, it is said that the Lord Hari, the son of Harimeda and Harini, saved Gajendra from the mouth of the crocodile. So as soon as Parikshit Maharaj heard this, he got a question. How is that the Lord saved the king of the elephants? So this is the question which came into Parikshit Maharaj's mind. So he asked a question, and Sukadeva Goswami describes the deliverance of Gajendra. So that is from chapters 2 to 4. And then 5th to 12th description. And now you might be wondering who is Gajendra, who is the king of the elephants and all. So actually in those times the Gajendra's moksha was already famous. So when Sukadeva Goswami describes this, so Parikshit naturally got a curiosity to hear more about that subject matter. So I am not touching about that subject matter, but Parikshit Maharaj asked that question and Sukadeva Goswami answered this question. So that is about chapter 2 to 4. Fifth describes about the description of the fifth and sixth manus. We know, right? We described before that in one day of Brahma there will be 14 manus. So every manu will in one day of Brahma 14 manus. So every manu will rule for approximately 72 Divya Yugas. So one Divya Yuga is actually 43,20,000 years of in our Earth planet. So every Manu will rule for 72 into 43,20,000 years. That is one period of Manu. So we have completed 14 in one. That is in one day of Brahma. So in we have completed till now 6 manvantras, and we are in the 7th manvantara. That we while doing sankalpa we say, right, that is Vaivasvata manvantare, Kali Yuge, Prathame Pade, Jambu Dvipe. So all these things are there, right? So this is actually the description where what is the time in which we are. That is a time description with the period which is going. The 7th Manu period is going on now. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Ahamavyayam Vivasvan Maname Prahaha. So Vivasvan is the sun god, and his son is a Vaivasvata Manu. So Vaivasvata Manu's period is going on now. Yeah. So before this, there are 6 Manus which are gone, right? So these people, the description of these Manus were described in the chapters 5 to 12, and chapter 13 to 14 actually describes about the 7th Manu, that is the current Manu, and then the future Manus who are going to come. And then while describing that, the Lord of the 7th Manu of which was being described, Parikshit Maharaj again got a question about the who is Lord Vamanadeva. Please describe about the past times. So for that, actually the story of Bali Maharaja was described from chapters 15 to 23, and then in chapter 24 the incarnation of Lord Matsya was described actually, which actually led to the how the 7th Manu has become the Manu from the previous Manvantara. So that pastime is described by the incarnation of Matsya. In 6th Manvantara, in the Chakshusha Manvantara, there was a dissolution, and then Matsyatar appeared to save a king called Shraddha Deva, and who is supposed to be the next Manu, that is the Vaivasvata Manu, who is ruling now. So that is being described about in the chapter 24 of the 8th canto. Yeah. So this is what we are going to discuss from tomorrow. We have tried our best, a little effort to explain this subject matter. I am sure that there will be discrepancies, there will be inadequacies. So I beg pardon to excuse me. And then I think we already have crossed time. We will end our session today. If there are any 1 or 2 questions, we'll take, otherwise we'll part. Okay. So we will part for the day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare